What is happening, investors? It is your boy Jack. I am not a financial advisor. March coming very soon. And today we're going to speak about Altria Stock, okay? One of my favourite high-paying dividend stocks. I've spoken about these guys briefly on the channel a few times, and I've received quite a few questions about them, and it's clear to understand why. I mean, they have an 8.58% dividend yield as of right now. That is one very big dividend yield. Not only that though, okay, this company's main business is in selling cigarettes, and if you know anything about cigarettes, you will know that less and less people are smoking cigarettes, and they have been doing so since mid-1950s. Despite that, this company has managed to return over 10,000% to their investors since 1960. So there's an awful lot to cover. These guys have stakes in new companies in emerging sectors, such as cannabis, such as e-cigarettes, nicotine pouches, loads of different things. So these guys clearly understand what's happening in the world and that they need to adapt, that they need to get into these emerging markets. I personally believe that these are one really exciting stock with so much long-term potential. With an 8.5% dividend yield, I mean, it seems too good to be true, and that's what we're going to speak about today. I have to say quickly, thank you all so much for the support on yesterday's video. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on the screen right now. It was my 5,000 sub special, it was my full portfolio, and the amount of love that was shown on that video, genuinely, I was here all day looking at the comments. I was so happy. I've replied to everybody as I always do. I appreciate you all so much. It's absolutely mental to me. I mean, we've just absolutely smashed through 5,000 subs. The road to 10,000 is now on. It's crazy, guys. I appreciate you all so much. So if you enjoy these videos and you want to see more of me just speaking about one stock in a bit more detail, please smash that like button now. It means an awful lot to me. Subscribe if you are new around here, of course. And drop me a comment, just let me know what stocks you'd like me to speak about in depth like we're going to do today. There's a few already in my head, but I want to know exactly what ones you guys want to hear about, so just let me know. But with all of that being said, there's a lot to say about these guys, so let's get straight into the video, baby. Boom. Okay guys, so we're going to start it off with the very basics. We're looking at Altria Group, a dividend yield of 8.58%. Dividend safety of 55. Now, I personally don't think this is very fair whatsoever. And the last thing really quickly, they have that uninterrupted dividend streak of 50 plus years, making them a dividend king. And not only a dividend king, making them a dividend king with that 8.58% yield. That is not something that you see any day by any means whatsoever. So a really quick summary of who they are and what they do, okay? They were founded in 1919. They're America's largest tobacco company. The business split into three separate firms in 2007 and 2008. That's Altria, Philip Morris International, and Kraft, with Altria retaining all domestic tobacco operations. They have exclusive US rights to sell cigarettes primarily under the Marlboro, Parliament, Virginia Slims, and Benson and Hedges brands. The company also markets cigars, chewing tobacco, and table wines, and owns a 10% stake, valued at about $15 billion, in Bud, the world's largest beer company. And they're in more than just Bud, but we're going to get into all of that a little bit later on. So we just saw that forever their main business has simply been cigarettes. It's very straightforward, okay? Now we're having a look at the max stock chart, and obviously that goes back all the way to 1980 for us right here. What I want to show you quickly is this graph first of all, okay? US smoking rate falls to a record low. This here is the share of Americans who have smoked a cigarette in the last week. And going back to 1954, we can see that 45% of Americans had smoked a cigarette in the last week. And this graph only goes to 2018, but we can see in 2018, that was all the way down to 16%, okay? So you would expect that something like this would be very bad for a company like Altria who sells cigarettes. But if we go back to 1980, okay, and we go from all the way there, all the way up to the very highs, we're looking at a company who had returned over 20,000% in about 37 years. That is absolutely nuts. I mean, if you put $1,000 into these guys back in 1980, that would now be worth more than 20 million, okay? That is just how much these guys have grown. It's been absolutely crazy. Now, from those 1980 levels to where we're at right now, we're still up over 10,000%, okay? And it's been a bad couple of years, a very bad couple of years. And a lot of people think it's been a bad couple of years because of the decline in smokers. But if that was the case, this initial 20,000% of growth would have never even stood a chance of happening. A quick look at a couple of points from Altria's Q1 earnings, okay? Their net revenues went up 13% year over year from the first quarter of 2019. That is big. Their adjusted EPS 18.5%, okay, so a fantastic start to the year for these guys. Now if we go ahead and have a look at this stock on a shorter time basis, and we go to their, let's say, 6-month highs all the way to the 6-month lows, these guys lost nearly 40%, okay? As of right now, they're still down about 24% from those highs, and it's been a decent recovery, from that very low up to where we are now, 25-ish% recovery, so decent, nothing crazy. It's always important to keep in mind we're looking at a company with an 8.5% dividend yield right now. So that was just to set the scene a little bit, okay? There's been less and less people smoking for decades and decades, over half a century, and Altria have still gotten that share price up and made an awful lot of money and rewarded their investors for over 50 years, and it's now up to that 8.5% dividend yield. But with that in mind, it's been a tough last few years, and they're actually down nearly 50% from their 5-year high that was only about 3 years ago. So what do I see in them now? Why do I really like the look of these guys, considering, they've lost a lot of money these last few years? Why do I think now is a good time to buy? So as we said earlier, they hold a position in AB InBev. They have a 10% investment in the global beer industry leader. Now next up, they have a 35% stake in Cronus Group. So what Cronus are, okay, they're an innovative global cannabinoid company. So cannabis is a growing industry. It's a relatively new industry. For most of history, cannabis has been illegal. You couldn't smoke it, you couldn't buy it, you couldn't sell it, you couldn't grow it. And now we have countries where, it's completely and utterly legal. Anybody can smoke. Some people can grow in some countries. It's an emerging market, and Cronus is one of the big players. Canada, in October 17, 2018, they legalised recreational marijuana in full. Growers can get licensed by the federal government, and then individual provinces determine how the product gets distributed and sold. So it's completely legal in a company as massive as Canada. And you'll see here that Cronus is in CAD, okay, so it is a Canadian company. And we can see that around the time that it got legalised in Canada, this stock blew up, close to 200%. Now since then, it has been a steady decline down because the rest of the world hasn't really followed suit yet. I think a lot of these companies that are up and coming that do have a name for themselves, when the world starts to legalise it, more than just Canada and even certain US states and Netherlands everywhere, they're going to blow up. Cannabis is now decriminalised in a whole lot of companies. Decriminalised in Jamaica, okay? It's decriminalised in Costa Rica, in Belize. Loads of different places it's now decriminalised. You won't get criminal charges if you hold a certain amount of it and just smoke it in your own home. So to me, this is a really exciting one, and they do own a 35% stake, so a massive stake. Now there's also a few more things, a few more emerging industries that these guys are in. So there's 3 more things I want to touch on. One is IQOS, one is Juul, and one is On. So IQOS, first of all, a global heated tobacco leader. And what I want to show you, okay, is that the profit margins for these are 30 to 50% higher than for conventional cigarettes. So what are these products? They're a new alternative to smoking that heats tobacco rather than burning it, and their products are 95% less harmful chemicals compared to cigarettes. So if that is true, that's going to be fantastic. A big reason a lot of people aren't smoking is because we're now more health conscious. We now understand the dangers of tobacco and cigarettes in particular, all of the bad chemicals in those cigarettes. So things like this could be the future. So to see Altria here is fantastic. Now next up we have Juul, and if you're from the US, which an awful lot of you are, you will more than likely know what Juul is. So Altria Stock craters after a 4.1 billion hit from Juul investment. It blames growing legal risk. So this obviously is not a good thing, okay? Juul have not become the investment that Altria wanted them to. But that does not mean that one day they won't be. So what's happened here is it reflects the increased number of legal cases against Juul and the expectation that that number will grow, Altria said. They cut their long-term earnings per share growth target for 2020-22 from a range of 5% to 8% to an adjusted goal of 4% to 7%, reflective of its investment in Juul. So right now, this isn't working out. Who knows, if they're to get through all of this and they come out on top on the other side, it will end up to be a fantastic investment. It's only a matter of time. But what is also nice and what we can, take a bit of calmness in is the fact that they're not just in Juul. They have Cronus, they have Bud, they have IQOS, and the final thing we're going to speak about is On, these oral nicotine pouches. So what these are essentially just little pouches that you can put in your mouth that will give you your nicotine but don't contain tobacco, okay? So it's 100% tobacco free and uses plant-derived nicotine crystals to deliver a good kick in a small, clean, oral pouch format. So again, people want to live healthier lives. They don't want to smoke cigarettes with all the chemicals in them. They just want their nicotine hit. Something like this, if somebody doesn't want to smoke at all, if they don't want to use a Juul or an electric cigarette, whatever it is, something like this will work well for them. Here's what's quite exciting, okay? The global nicotine pouches market is valued at $619.9 million in 2020, and it's expected to reach $12.97 billion by the end of 2026, growing at 53.8% during 2021 to 2026. So there's an awful lot of potential here if these forecasts are to come true. So these are some of the reasons that I love Altria, okay, because they have such a good history. I mean, they've returned so much money to investors. despite the fact that less and less people were smoking, okay? And now they're still doing everything they always have done, but they're breaking into these emerging markets, which is just, it's diversifying them as one company. Earlier on I said they had a 35% investment in Cronus, it was 45%, my apologies. So as of right now, it is the cigarette business that's bringing in the money. It accounts for nearly 90% of total sales and 85% of operating income. But remember, these are all to an extent emerging markets. They haven't been around very long and they have potential to absolutely blow up. So we're going to have to wait and see. Do I think they're one of the safest companies in the world? Do I think, there's no risk involved? Most certainly not, especially given the last 3 years we've had. But do I think that I see a stock that has been hit nearly 50%, that has given investors over 20,000% in the last 36 odd years? What I'm looking at, in my eyes, is a growth stock that has an 8.5% dividend. So it may carry some risk, it may drop another 30, 40, 50%, who knows? At the end of the day, if that happens, it was a bad call. It happens. And as of right now, it has a forward PE ratio of 9.2, which is well above its 5-year average of 18.1, okay? It's a very nice PE ratio right now if you believe in them in the long term. So that is up to you if you do believe that they will grow in the long term, or if you believe that they're just going to keep going down. But me personally, I definitely see this company in the next 10 years being far above their previous highs. I either see that happening or me losing about 50%. And you know what? It is what it is. I'm young, I can afford some of these higher risk companies even if I don't believe they're higher risk. But yeah, that is Altria. For me personally, I just believe that the reward far outweighs the risk. As always, of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to buy these guys. I'm not advising that you do whatsoever. I always want you guys to go ahead and do your own analysis and form your own opinions. But for me personally, in a world where I'm trying to buy more growth stocks, Altria looks very nice to me, because not only do I believe it has the potential to be a growth stock, it's also going to pay me that 8.5% dividend regardless, and the odds of that dividend being cut in any way whatsoever, in my opinion, are very low. They're penetrating into these emerging markets. They have a massive share in the US for cigarettes in general, despite the fact it is a declining industry. I just think as part of a well-diverse portfolio, it's a bet I'm very happy to take. I really do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please smash a like and drop me a comment to let me know what company, what stock you would like me to review next. Hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. I will see you all for a video tomorrow. Have a good one, guys. Peace.